Welcome back, deep divers. Ready to explore some new perspectives on parenting today.
Absolutely. Always up for that.
We got a listener request to dig into Parenting from the Heart by Jack Pransky. Sounds right up your alley.
Oh, yeah. Pransky's great. His work's really insightful. It's all about shifting how we view children, even when they're driving us up the wall, you know?
Right, because the traditional discipline thing, it doesn't always work out so well, does it?
No, not always. Pransky's big idea is that how we see our kids, it actually shapes how we treat them and how they respond. It's like instead of just reacting to every little behavior.
We change the whole lens we're looking through.
Exactly. We recognize their inherent goodness even when they're acting up because they're still learning, right?
So we ditch the labels like, he's the naughty one, or she's just difficult, because that probably creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, doesn't it?
It really can. Think about it. If you keep telling a kid they're messy, they might start to believe it and give up trying to be neat. But if you praise their efforts, even the small ones.
It could make a world of difference.
Exactly. Our expectations, they really do influence outcomes.
So powerful. Imagine your kid's having a meltdown, throwing a tantrum, and instead of seeing a bad kid, you see a little human who's just overwhelmed.
Totally changes your approach, right?
You're going to react with empathy, not anger.
Exactly. And that leads right into another big point Pransky makes. The power of our own moods as parents.
Oh, that's huge.
Because if we react to a tantrum when we're already stressed out, it's just going to escalate things.
Adding fuel to the fire.
But if we come in calm and understanding.
Creates a much safer space for everyone.
Exactly. It's like we're setting the tone.
It's like that example he gives in the book, the toddler who kept snatching toys from other kids. It wasn't about being mean. It was a cry for attention.
Oh, right, right.
And instead of just punishment, they focused on teaching the child how to interact respectfully and...
meeting that need for attention in a positive way.
Yeah. And it worked. Prevented that pattern from sticking with the kid.
Which gets to the heart of Pransky's challenge to the whole bad behavior thing. He says a lot of what we see is acting out.
It isn't really intentional.
Yeah, it comes from insecurity, not defiance. Especially with little ones, they don't always have the words for their feelings, you know?
They're still learning to regulate those emotions.
Exactly. So a tantrum might not be defiance. It could be a cry for help.
Or connection. That's a big shift for some parents, I'd imagine.
It is. Requires us to look beyond the behavior itself and try to understand what's driving it.
Which is where Pransky's emphasis on active listening comes in, right?
Yes. Really tuning into what they're trying to communicate, even if they can't put it into words.
So it's not just hearing the words, it's...
understanding the music behind them.
I like that.
Because there's always a reason, you know? Like that example in the book, the kid caught lying. Instead of just punishment, the parent asked questions, tried to understand.
And what did they find out?
The child felt this immense pressure to be perfect, terrified of disappointing their parents.
So heartbreaking.
Lying was their way of coping.
Makes you think how often we jump to conclusions without truly listening.
Yeah, we often miss the why behind the what, you know?
Totally. And so much of it is just their age, too, right? Their brains are still developing. They're figuring things out as they go.
Exactly. Pransky talks about how we need to remember that, how their emotional regulation skills are still forming. That's why he puts so much emphasis on understanding a child's internal compass.
Internal compass. What's that mean?
It's like their own sense of right and wrong, their inner guide. The thing is, when we focus too much on punishment and obedience...
we might actually be holding them back.
Exactly. We want to help them develop that internal compass, not just make them afraid of getting in trouble.
So it's less about blindly following rules and more about
understanding why those rules exist in the first place.
So they can make good choices even when we're not around. But how do we actually encourage that kind of thinking? Especially in today's world, right? Instant gratification everywhere you look.
Right. It's tough. But Pransky has some great practical tips, like getting kids involved in chores and responsibilities from a young age.
Even little things.
Even little things. Setting the table, putting away toys.
So they feel like they're contributing.
Exactly. It builds that sense of responsibility, of being part of something bigger than themselves.
It's not just my stuff, it's our stuff.
Exactly. And it ties into the idea of natural consequences.
Oh, right. Like if they forget their homework, we don't bail them out at the last minute.
Let them feel that little bit of discomfort.
A little tough love goes a long way.
Because those natural consequences, they teach valuable lessons about planning ahead, being responsible.
But Pransky's also big on setting clear boundaries, right? So how do those two things work together? Letting them experience consequences, but also having those firm boundaries.
It's a great question. It's where Pransky's approach is a little different. He believes boundaries are essential, but
With how we go about it.
exactly, it's about collaboration, not control.
So less do this because I said so, and more.
Hey, let's figure this out together.
I love that.
It's about finding solutions that work for everyone, not just laying down the law.
Like that example in the book, the kid who kept leaving their stuff all over the house.
Oh, yeah. Instead of yelling, the parent was like, look, when the house is messy, I feel stressed. Can we find a way to make things calmer for everyone?
Turning it into a shared goal.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes the kids come up with the best ideas.
Because they feel heard, they feel respected.
And when they feel that way, they're much more likely to cooperate.
It's not about being permissive. It's about...
Mutual respect.
Exactly. So we've got active listening, setting boundaries, teaching responsibility. Pransky also talks about those subtle messages we send, right?
Planting a message, he calls it.
Oh, I like
It's those little things we do, the words we use, often without even realizing it.
that speak volumes.
Exactly. Like, if we're always reminding them to do their homework, pack their bag.
We might accidentally be sending the message that it's our job, not theirs.
Exactly. And when we constantly jump in to fix their mistakes...
We rob them of the chance to learn from them.
Exactly.
It's hard though, right? As parents, we want to protect them.
Of course.
But maybe we're not doing them any favors in the long run.
It's about finding that balance. Pransky says letting them stumble a bit, make mistakes, it's all part of growing up.
Building resilience, learning to bounce back. This is fascinating stuff. It really is a different way of looking at parenting, isn't it? It really is a different way of thinking. It's almost like rewiring our brains, you know?
It is, especially if we didn't have that kind of modeling growing up. But the good news is, it's not about being perfect. It's about awareness, catching ourselves when we fall back into those old patterns.
So recognizing those moments where we're reacting from our own stuff, not actually responding to what the child's doing.
Exactly. Hitting that pause button, asking ourselves, okay, what's really going on here? Why am I so triggered right now?
Right, because usually it's not even about them at that point, right? It's our own baggage.
Exactly. And once we understand our own triggers, we can start to choose a different response, one that's calmer, more compassionate.
It's like they say on airplanes, put your own oxygen mask on first.
Exactly. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? We have to take care of ourselves so we can show up as the best parents we can be.
And speaking of showing up, that story about Pransky's son, Dave, really got to me.
Oh, yeah. Powerful stuff.
It really highlighted how precious, how fragile life is, and how we can't take a single moment with our children for granted.
For those who haven't read the book, Dave had a brain aneurysm when he was young. Had to relearn how to walk, how to talk.
It just goes to show, life throws curveballs. And sometimes, parenting means adjusting our expectations, celebrating those small victories.
Absolutely. It's not about molding our kids into some perfect image we have in our heads.
It's about accepting them for who they are, messiness and all.
And trusting that they'll find their own way.
Even if it's not the path we would have chosen for them.
Yeah. Exactly. Which reminds me of Emily's story. The teenager who was really struggling, drinking, drugs, skipping school. Her poor mom, Harriet, was at her wit's end.
Oh, I remember that one. It would have been so easy to just get angry, try to control everything. But Harriet, she took a different approach.
She did. She set firm boundaries, got Emily professional help, but ultimately she realized she couldn't force her daughter to change.
All she could do was love her through it.
Exactly, and it wasn't easy, but ultimately Emily found her way back.
It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let go. Let them face the consequences of their actions, even when it's tough to watch.
Because that's how they learn and grow.
And that's a lesson that applies to so much more than just parenting, don't you think?
Absolutely. How many of us try to control the people we love, our partners, our friends? Pransky's book is a great reminder that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is step back, offer support, not solutions.
Trust that they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So for everyone listening, think about the relationships in your own life. Where could you use a little more of that Pransky wisdom? Where could you let go of the need to control and just be present? It's something to think about.
Definitely. Food for thought.
Well, I think we've done a pretty deep dive into parenting from the heart for today.
We did.
So much to think about. Until next time, deep divers, keep those conversations going.
Thanks for listening. Did you enjoy what you heard? Want to buy this book? Please use the link in the description to support the channel.